I'm Rob Shields, and this is Peace Talks, the podcast that covers everything to do with competitive jigsaw puzzling. If you've watched the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship, you've probably seen Charlie Kendall. Officially, he's the on-site announcer, but he occasionally appears on the live stream, and the odds are good that if something needs fixing, he's in the middle trying to fix it. Charlie Kendall, thank you for joining Peace Talks.
Rob, it's a delight to be here.
I've wanted to get you on the show for a very long time. You're a fixture at the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship pretty much since its inception, but I feel like there's not a lot out there about you. So I'm eager to kind of get in and really understand you and your journey and how that relates to the World Jigsaw Puzzle Federation and Championships. With that said, let's begin at the beginning. What's your earliest puzzle memory?
My earliest puzzle memory, that's definitely a puzzle that I used to do when I was a child, of a steam engine in a field. And I remember very clearly a wooden puzzle, because in my house, we wouldn't have anything but wooden puzzles.
Is that right?
Absolutely. And I remember very clearly the puzzle I used to do. I remember on the bottom left as well, I remember the sizes, because it had sort of one with a really big nozzle, then a slightly smaller one, and then a slightly smaller. I remember how they went together, and that was also the wheel of the steam engine as well. So it's a puzzle I remember very, very clearly.
I feel like I may have seen that puzzle, actually. It sounds familiar.
Well, the box was a yellow box with a yellow border on it. It's probably Gibson's or something. I can't remember them. I can't remember the name.
Were you much of a puzzler in your youth?
I was definitely. I mean, puzzles were always around. We always did a puzzle, but I think in a traditional sense, the Christmas puzzle. Certainly, puzzles were part of the toy collection. So yes, we do puzzles, but not in any way obsessive.
Normally, I would ask a competitive puzzler how they heard about competitive jigsaw puzzling and what did they think of that. But I'm not sure. Have you ever been a competitive jigsaw puzzler?
I have, Rob. I not a very good one, but I absolutely have. I was I did some local competitions here in Spain, and then I also competed in pairs and in individuals in Spanish nationals, probably about 12 years ago, but took early retirement from my jigsaw speed puzzling non-successes. Had a bout of puzzle blindness, which put an early end to my career.
What does that mean when you say puzzle blindness?
Well, just the pieces blur into one another, and I have no idea, and they just get stared at. I think I need a bit of time off here, but unfortunately, the clock pauses for no man.
Indeed. Where did you hear about competitive puzzling for the first time?
Via Alfonso. Alfonso, I've known for 25 years or so. And then via Facebook, I noticed that he was posting a lot of things about jigsaw puzzling. I realized that he was very into jigsaw puzzles. And I said, I've got this puzzle. I had a Wentworth puzzle. My brother had given everybody Wentworth jigsaw puzzles, which are these wooden laser cut jigsaw puzzles with whimsy pieces for Christmas. And one of them made it back to Spain with me. And I thought I'd give Alfonso a call and say, hey, would you like to do this puzzle with me? He said, come on over. And said, by the way, I'm signing you up for these competitions I've got in Spain. So we went on a little weekend jaunt to a couple of local towns and did some competitive jigsaw puzzling.
And so this is Alfonso, who would eventually become the president of the World Jigsaw Puzzle Federation.
Absolutely. Alfonso Alvarado de Osorio.
So you knew Alfonso from way back. What did you think when you heard that there even were competitive jigsaw puzzle competitions?
The first thing was, how come I hadn't heard of these before? Then it was also, how come they're doing this in Spain? It's the English who, we get a roll of cheese and a hill, and we've got a competition. We somehow have never managed to do. There are jigsaw puzzle competitions there, but it's not been a big thing, and certainly not been what it's since grown into over the last few years.
Do you have any insight as to why Spain got started in the competitive jigsaw puzzling arena so early?
Largely due to the efforts of Alfonso. Alfonso made a massive effort. I mean, he comes from a jigsaw puzzling family, jigsaw puzzle obsessives. His brothers have got a major collection, which has been able to be seen as well as part of the World Championships on a couple of occasions. Last year, 2024, it was, and they've promoted speed puzzling and organised competitions and set up the Spanish Federation and been pioneers in progressing it on eventually a world scale.
And this goes back quite a long ways, if I recall correctly.
I believe it was the late 2000s that the first competitions were going ahead, 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
The first Spanish nationals were, I'm afraid my history is not great, but it was around that time as well. I think the first nationals 2009, possibly, which means that maybe some smaller competitions would be going ahead beforehand, before launching internationals.
And was it Alfonso and sounds like his brothers who were responsible for the nationals at that time?
Particularly Alfonso and his brother Fernando as well, I think, were particular. But all the family, his mother takes part still. She's in her 90s.
That's awesome.
His brothers take part as well. He's from a very big family, 8 or 9 of them, I think, brothers and sisters in total. And others take part as well in the competitions.
So do you recall about what year it was that you enter this timeline?
2012, I think, 2013.
And so you did your stint as a competitive puzzler. Did you take it seriously, or was it the kind of thing that you just occasionally engaged in when there was a competition?
I didn't take it particularly seriously. I'll take it seriously. I try and do it as quickly as I can, but my mind somehow didn't really click. I mean, it requires a lot of practice. My hat goes off to these people who can do it well. And I've been getting back into it recently as well, not in a competitive sense, but just in doing puzzles and having a puzzle, generally speaking, on the go, which is not something I've ever done on my own, but it's something I have been doing and enjoy doing, and getting better at doing so. But it's not something I'm in a rush to do, generally speaking.
So you were competitive jigsaw puzzler for a little while. Did you have a particular skill? Was there anything that you felt like you were really good at, relatively speaking?
No, I definitely not. Skills are very limited. I mean, I can spot an edge piece. I can see a straight line. And if it's got a kink in it, generally speaking, it's probably not an edge piece, or a little bobble on the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no particular skills, and a very undistinguished jigsaw puzzler. Of course, in pairs, I was very flattered because I paired with somebody. I don't think I even realized, I didn't know him beforehand. And so we finished the puzzle, and of course, it totally flattered me into thinking that I actually somehow had finished this puzzle, and something might have been, to do with me. I would have put a few pieces together, but I think he probably did, probably 90% of it.
So you said finish the puzzle, so like literally got it done in the time. Is that what you mean?
Yes, we got it done in the time. But I mean, I'm going to say the royal we. I was there. I was sitting down. I was looking at the pieces. A couple of them would get put together. But I think thinking back, I think that it was also largely to do with him and not so much to do with, the best I could do was not get in the way of what he was doing.
I've absolutely been in that position where I consider myself as having a privileged seat to watch and occasionally put in some pieces, some great puzzlers. At what point did you move into the other side of organizing and being more involved in not just the doing the competition side? Was it from the very beginning?
The moment I became involved was very much with the inception of the first World Jigsaw Puzzle Championships. And I got a call from Alfonso who said, "Charlie, I need your help. I've got some people from all around the world and I'd like you to come along and give me a hand with translating and helping out with the guests and puzzlers who've come from around the world to compete." And so my role was really one of interpreting and translating. And that was my next after a hiatus of a few years of really not having anything to do whatsoever with jigsaw puzzling, I was back in the fold.
All right, so you came along at near the inception of the World Jigsaw Puzzling Federation.
I mean, I will say that the Jigsaw Puzzle Federation, as such, has existed in name. We are close to having it existing in reality by being a democratic body and representative of jigsaw puzzlers around the world. I would say to now it's been a proto-federation.
So up to this point, has it primarily been like an Alfonso run sort of component, and then he's working on bringing other people into the fold, or what's the evolution?
Very much so. Very much so. The initiative's been very much on his side. He's organized everybody. He's the one who's been encouraging people to come from around the world insofar as he can for something which currently doesn't exist, with countries who have no formal organization of associations, and just really through aficionados of jigsaw puzzles around the world, and just, by the wonders of internet, being in contact with them and persuading them to come over, and then organizing them and saying, getting a date together, come on, you've got to come along. And phenomenal feat, really. What was not so long ago now, we're talking 2018, 2019, not so long ago, and but with very little organization of any association around the world. There's no Australian association. There's no, I don't think, United States association. Big associations now, Swedish association, which is huge. That's yet to get off the ground. So it's really a loose connections around the world. There was a very big Russian participation in 2019 as well.
I did notice that.
Look back at the results, you'll see a lot of and I remember them very clearly. They were the first teams winners as well.
So Alfonso reached out to you in part for translation. Do you have a background in translation? I mean, forgive me for saying it, but you don't come across as having a strong Spanish accent when you're speaking in English. So I suspect that Spanish isn't your first language.
Spanish is not my first language. Spanish is my third language, French being the second language. French has always been my second language, even though now it's slightly on the back burner and needs refreshing. I really need to get my French back.
What drew you into speaking these languages?
I think lack of direction. I've never really. I've always been a jack of all trades. No, I don't think misspent. I think just something which I've always enjoyed. I enjoy languages. I enjoyed French particularly, and that was always something which is going to be useful. And so I always continued. I did it at school, obviously, and then I went to uni. I had no idea what I really wanted to do, and so I just thought, well, I'll go to uni. I'll just study languages. It's always going to be handy. And so then I took up Spanish at uni as well, and then part of my third year was spent abroad on placements, and I spent 5 months in France. Amazing time there in Vendée, La Roche-sur-Yon in France. And then I came to Valladolid in Spain. And then I finished my degree and just started working for a bank in the UK and thought, this is not for me. Not a banker. I thought, and everyone in the bank, everyone's saying, just go to Spain. Will you just get out of here?
Were you just continually talking about it? Is that the problem?
I think I must have been. And so I did. And I just got on a flight with, a couple of £100, 20,000 pesetas, I think it was, packed some suitcases, and just came out and met some amazing people out here in Spain. And I've just completed 30 years living here in Spain.
I assume that you're not banking, nor do I assume that puzzling isn't your full-time occupation. Do you have a background in this particular kind of thing?
I do lots of things. I am a teacher, primarily I'd say a teacher. I'm also a voiceover artist. I do occasional translations and interpreting. Last weekend, I was helping and interpreting for Antonio Banderas' daughter's wedding. And so I was there in the
Cool.
thick of things, setting up, doing everything from, just as a go-between and sorting out problems and anything from lighting candles and setting up lights to making sure that the wedding planners were happy with how the general lighting was and the sound and everything. It was a interesting occasion as well.
I mean, this sounds not too dissimilar to how I think about you in the context of the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship. So let's sort of back up here a little bit. Alfonso had invited you to come and help on the translation and other sides. Tell me sort of what you remember about before the actual event happened.
Well, nothing at all, for a very good reason. In that he probably phoned me up on a Thursday night and said, "You come along tomorrow. Have you got a couple of hours free?" And so it was just pretty organically. I just turned up and was just there on hand to do anything to help out. And as is my nature, so I got right down into the thick of things. And then I got given a microphone, which my really good friends know not to give me.
I'm a little concerned for myself right now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, and I ended up doing some interviews as well. In fact, they're on the World Jigsaw Puzzle Federation website, and you can see some slightly awkward interviews where I'm translating, but having a lot of fun into the bargain as well.
Was there a live stream that year?
There was a live stream in Spanish, absolutely. So the first 2 years, 2019, 2022, there were live streams in Spanish only.
And were you involved in any of those?
I was involved not so much in the live streams as to the cutaways to the interviews. So they'd cut away to me and I'd interview the first, second, third places. Because in the first Worlds, the teams competition was an 8-hour marathon. They had to complete 2 1,000-piece puzzles and 2 1,500-piece puzzles. That's a long time to be puzzling. So it wasn't like it is now where everyone's racing away and you don't want to disturb anyone. This was more of a social event. So I'd go in, I'd talk to them while they were puzzling, which, you wouldn't think of doing these days, of going, "So do you mind if I just interrupt you and have a little chat? Where are you from? And you from?" But it was all the rage there. And in fact, you can see online the interview with the only American team who were there that year.
So let me tell you a little bit about my intersection with that. So that's the Jacobs family, with, I believe, Arnold Jacobs, better known as AJ Jacobs, who is a of immersive writer. He's a journalist for sure, but known for sort of immersing himself in topics full on and then writing books about his immersion in it. Like, for example, he spent some time reading the entire encyclopedia. And so he has a book about, his experience reading the encyclopedia. He has recently put out a book about living according to the U.S. Constitution and the kind of components of the U.S. of that era. He's put out The Year of Living Biblically. So he's sort of known for doing these stunt things. And so one of the things he did is he heard about this competition in Spain for World Jigsaw Puzzling as he was thinking about putting together a book about various kinds of puzzling. He went and was the one, he and his family were the one U.S. representative, I believe. And he ended up writing a chapter in his book, The Puzzler, about that experience. It is that book, that chapter of that book, that kicked off my wife and I's obsession with competitive jigsaw puzzling. So in a weird sort of way, you were present at the moment that this podcast was going to eventually be happening.
I like it. It's gone full circle. That's amazing. I have very good memories. It's Arnold, Julie, Jasper, Zane, and Lucas was the family.
Right, because it was teams of 5, right?
I think only 4 were meant to be puzzling at any one time. But I mean, we'll put a link. I say that.
I was going to say.
Here I am taking control of your podcast.
How bold of you. Yes, we will put a link. What are we putting a link to?
Oh, that's me getting you out. You can see the kind of person I am. I like to be involved, Rob. I like to be involved. I sometimes go, maybe, I hope I don't go where I'm not meant to go, but I like to involve myself in things. So, link below.
Speaking of getting involved in things, so you were invited to do a supporting role in the 2019. You did some translation work, some announcing work, some
Yes.
interviewing work. Because you like to get involved in things, I sort of would be surprised if that was all that you did. I imagine that you just started getting your hands in a bunch of other things. Is that true?
I don't remember particularly, but I mean, I would certainly have been involved and, in anything that needs done. Like if I see someone needs help, I'll help them out. That's just my nature, really. So I don't remember particularly that year that there was any particular need for it. I wasn't up on stage. I don't think I was doing any announcing. I don't remember the closing ceremony either. I think I was up on stage on the following year. Well, the following year. I mean, of course, it's 3 years, obviously, COVID. It was either side of COVID. So it was 2022 before I was actually up on stage and doing a bit more of the announcing. But of course, the 2019 event was really it was sort of an extension of the Spanish Association. So it was they had Spanish nationals, but it was very much drawing on the Spanish contingent as well to fill out numbers.
In 2019, it looks like there were about 200 individual competitors. Now, there may have been more across the everything else. It was a 2-day competition. There was just one event for each class. So one individuals, one pairs, one teams event.
Yes.
A small, compact in terms of people and time and number of events sort of event. Do you remember much in details about the event itself?
I just remember having a lot of fun, meeting a lot of lovely people. It was really relaxed. It was it was a lot of fun, and I was just amazed at seeing at close hand the Russian team. First of all, I remember doing a video of them doing the box opening, and just thinking that this looks like it's speeded up. I mean, it was all the hands went in to do the piece turnover. It was something else. It really was, and I was really amazed that they did these puzzles in just over 4 hours in teams. It was certain that very much remember the teams competition in that event, and because it was over 8 hours. And of course, you've got these, the teams, amazing teams, the Russian team, Siberian team, who finished in 4 hours, 11 minutes, and the Czech Dragons, two of whom are now the Czech Puzzle Queens, obviously, with Jana and Katie. And then another Russian team as well, who came third and did it in 4.5 hours. And you've got a couple of Spanish teams who were Supernenas, who were just under 5 hours non-stop, who were currently, obviously, no Alejandro at this stage with non-stop. But the Annas and David were there.
It floors me that a competition format that was set for 8 hours, it must have been amazing to watch people have that time, given the amount of pieces they were trying to put together.
It's a lovely thing to do because you want everybody to get into it as much as possible. You don't want to people not to be finishing their puzzles, something which would happen in, I think, 2022 with what they call the Black Puzzle, which is the Brooklyn Bridge, when they had a 1,000 and a 1,500 pieces, but just 3 hours in which to do so. And that was the one where actually I think it was non-stop who were the only finishers.
That's right.
And so you want people to finish the puzzles. You want people are there to take part. And I think we're going to talk later on, aren't we, about possible, how it's going to shape up in the future, because obviously it's changed an awful lot in the last few years.
Were puzzles particularly secret at the time? Like, were there the same amount of sort of making sure that people didn't know what the puzzles were, protections going on in 2019?
Certainly, the puzzle. Always. It's the competition. It must be kept under wraps. What the identity of the puzzle. No one can know. It spoils the whole competition. It needs to be a secret. But we're still a fair way from having custom puzzles for the competition. So they were offered puzzles from the following year's catalogue. And from the Ravensburg catalog from the following year. So they could be as yet unpublished. But as far as I can gather, I was not involved and have never been involved, in fact, with any of the choosing of the puzzles. This year, I did know what some of the puzzles were going to. I had seen them a few days before, but I wasn't involved in choosing them in any way. But yeah, certainly I think the possible selection was fairly limited as to what particularly Alfonso was offered from Ravensburger. They said, "What, you've got a choice. You wanted 1,500. You can have one of these three."
Hmm.
I think Val might have talked about that with you, didn't she? And she mentions talking about the choice of the puzzles, saying, "How did you choose that puzzle?" And he said, "Well, these were the other ones." She goes, "Oh, maybe I do understand that now."
Right. You don't get to specify any puzzle that you would like or any concept that you would like. They have a set of puzzles, and here's the ones you can choose from. It's interesting that even the world's the pinnacle of the puzzling every year has finite capabilities to specify what it is that they might want for a puzzle.
Everything's got to start from somewhere, and you look at, if you look back at, the history of any great sporting competitions, you've got the Olympics, and they were they were playing croquet, and they were
Essays,
doing essays. They were.
painting competitions. Yeah.
So I mean, you look back now, I think, really, there were some other quite extraordinary competitions that they had in the Olympics as well. So everything has to start somewhere, and there are plenty of competitions which don't get out. I mean, the World Series baseball. I don't think England or Spain have done very well in that ever. And we have similar competitions. Snooker, for example, has
Hmm.
always been held in the UK. It's been the same venue since 1977, which is really, as far as I can gather, not fit for purpose. And they're always wanting to but it's the spiritual home, and
Hmm.
it's. But then again, we can also say that it hasn't actually really moved out of the UK. The actual what is the World Championships? It's always been there. Just as the World Series has never been played outside of in baseball, has never been played out of the US.
Yes, you're setting us up well for a conversation a little later. I know. I like your artful storytelling and your use of foreshadowing. But at the moment, I sort of want to look at 2019's competition, and like I said, a couple hundred people, a couple of days. Like you said, the teams was almost a social event as much as it was a competition.
I mean, certainly once the first teams, I mean, I
For
say that
sure.
as well, once the first teams had finished. So we're concentrating on the teams. But then, of course, we've got another 4 hours from the first team finishing. And that's when it became, the people were tired and was setting in. And I talked about, obviously, the Arnold with AJ, the interview with him. And it was in the middle of the competition. So I interview him while the competition is still going on. And he's going, "I think we better get back and see if we can finish the first puzzle."
Yeah, I believe they finished second to the last or something like that. So
I think so, yeah.
So we would have in the future slightly better American representation,
Oh, and
but at least we had some representation that year. But what I want to do is take a look at like the 2025 competition, and just with an
yes.
eye of comparing and contrasting how things have evolved over the last few years. In 2025, we had nearly 1,000 competitors, which is 5 times as many as was in 2019 over
Yes.
7 days. No longer do we have just a single event per, but we have heats and semis and finals and a Guinness Book attempt and country battles. Like, it is now a much bigger affair. I would love for you to help us understand what changes in terms of when you go from a puzzling competition to the scale of 2019 to the scale of 2025.
Yes, I mean, I think the sheer numbers dictates qualifying rounds and semi-finals. We're in the same venue.
Mhm.
It's always been done in the same venue, and so the venue, which was half empty for the team's competition back in 2019, is now obviously is overbooked, is full with as many tables as we can get in there, and viewing space. We've now got people using outside as well a bit. And I think trying to offer what people who are coming from around the world, I think it needs to be more of an event. And so certainly I've done what I can to help. Last year in 2024, I did a quiz this year. We did as you said, the Guinness record attempt,
Mm-hmm.
which we might talk about a bit as well. There's been a bit of controversy about the attempt as well.
Oh, that's not on my list.
That's not on your list.
No, it is now.
It is now. We can start with that. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We've done the Guinness were there. So in 2023, Craig Glenday, who's the editor-in-chief of Guinness, and he was actually at the competition, spent the competition there. And that was when he said, well, look, I've got this puzzle, which is the Guinness World Record puzzle, which is a 2,000-piece puzzle, which is a triptych of 3 of the covers. He said, well, look, I'm offering a world record if anyone can do this in under 2 hours. So I said, I'll see if I can go and get a team together. And that was when I just tried to hoodwink as many people, many top puzzlers as I could so I tried to get a crack team. We had a few other teams who were doing it as well. But I got a really good team with your very own Kelly Walter was in there. And then we had Marketa and Teresa as well from the Czech Puzzle Queens. I think we had 2 of the Annas, were 2 Annas there from the Spanish team as well. Then we had Mel as well, Mel Townsend from the Aussie team. And now you've put the pressure on me and I've missed someone out. So that I'm so sorry to who I've left out. But there's a name missing, and I do apologize. Oh, we had Sophie from France.
You did it.
I think was that 8?
Uh-huh.
Oh, the pressure's on.
Let the record show that you put the pressure on yourself.
Okay, that's true. Post-podcast Charlie here. Just to clear up a small mistake I made in the names of the participants of the Guinness World Record. Of course, it wasn't in fact the 2 Annas, but one of the Annas and Soraya Perez, very well-known Spanish puzzler. Sorry, Soraya, to have missed you out there. I hope this clears it up. And of course, they did it in 1 hour and 20 minutes, which we then subsequently used for last year, 2024, when we decided to have the national competitions. This time they knew that was going to be the puzzle. It was decided too late in the day, unfortunately, to give them real warning. But certainly the Americans were, and I think Tammy as well, Tammy McLeod as well, and she's already a double world record holder as well, and she wasn't going to be missing out on this opportunity to get another world record under her belt. And they did it a phenomenal time as well. It was a really great sight to see them put that puzzle together in 40 odd minutes. So that was 2024. And then we wanted another Guinness one. And this actually came from the idea for this one came from Ravensburger themselves. And so we're going to put together a 42,000 piece puzzle. But of course, they'd pre-sorted into bags, into micro puzzles of 42 pieces, which are all numbered. Now, by any account, I mean, that is not putting a 42,000 piece puzzle together as you might imagine. And that would certainly not be possible in 25 minutes, which is what we did. And so we've got a crack team as well. So I organized a strategy. So I made a rudimentary system, what I thought was rudimentary, which changed very, very little from the initial inception to actually what we actually did was effectively make a production line. And so I said, look, we don't want people running about all over the place. We want to try and keep them still as much as possible in the same place. And of course, I had to transmit this to people, only 30 of whom would actually know beforehand what was actually going to be happening. So everyone else was coming in there. And then, of course, we had the power cut. So Daniela was also instrumental as well. And she was the one who, between me and her, we really sort of established how we were going to do this. She made an amazing PowerPoint presentation, which was going to show everybody how it was done before we did it. But then, of course, we had the power cut. And I'm shouting at this room full of 500 people, telling them how we're going to be doing this. I think basically just say, get out of the room, go and speak to someone from your country who will give you a piece of card on which I'd written a letter and a number as well. And then they had to find their letters, go to that section, speak to their section head. And somehow it all came together. And throughout this apparent chaos, we managed to put it all together in 25 minutes.
Yeah, I've heard from a number of people who participated in it that it was extremely well organized in terms of the mechanisms for assembling that puzzle. Now, you said it was controversial. Is that because they didn't start with a box full of pieces, and they started instead of with these kits, or is there more to it than that?
Rob, it's controversial in the sense that, I mean, it's a bit of a cheat. We're not really putting a puzzle, when you think of putting a puzzle together, the puzzle comes in the box, the pieces are loose, and you put the puzzle together. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Guinness, there's a world record for the number of people standing in a puzzle piece formation. There was a record this year with the longest tart, which we validated this year as well. There's another one, people standing on one leg and blowing balloons up while eating a lollipop. Or it's a pretty random set of rules now for what consists a Guinness World Record. And if they decide that they're going to if they decide they'll put you in the book, well, so be it. I don't think I think it's only a cheat in regard that we haven't put 42,000 loose pieces in a box together in 25 minutes. We definitely haven't done that. So in that regard, it's not what we've done. I don't think that format's commercially available. I don't know if you can buy the puzzle pre-sorted into those packs. You might have to do that yourself.
I want to jump back to 2025 versus 2019 real quick. In that growth over that period of time, did your role change, or by 2025 are you doing substantially the same sorts of things that you were originally invited to do? I guess I think of you as, again, putting your hands in a lot of things, and as a person who does that, you tend to get responsibility for more things because you've touched those things. So I'm curious as to what, if anything, changed for you.
My role in 2025 was enormously different. I mean, I've still got the mic, but my role is far more involved with the workings of what's going on. I'm aware of the schedule. I was suggesting, for example, I mean, as I was in 2024, but I was now suggesting we change the schedule to go from 9 down to 6. And I said, well, we've got a free morning. I better do something. We need something to be going on there. And I said, well, I'll organize something.
This was because of a shortfall in attendance versus projection in 2025. Yeah,
exactly.
So there were 3 rounds that were removed.
So we removed 3 rounds, exactly. There were going to be 9
individual rounds.
Exactly in the individual competition. So we needed to do 3 rounds on the Tuesday morning. This is the day after the opening ceremony. And there were going to be 3 in the afternoon as well. And so we got rid of the 3 in the morning, which freed up a whole morning to be, as far as I was concerned, let's do something. Let's get people doing some more puzzling. And, also a kind of ice-breaking event is what I eventually ended up doing, what turned in what we called the puzzle party.
Yeah.
The puzzle, they're slightly chaotic.
Well, for something that came together, I feel like I heard about this no later than the end of Monday or something. Like it seemed to have come together pretty quickly.
No, I'd been organizing it for a while.
Oh, great.
I wanted it to be, and this is slightly my fault as well, possibly in retrospect, I would have done it slightly differently. I wanted it to be people just turning up and taking part and coming along to it. I wanted there to be a slight, what's that? I wanted there to be a slight intrigue factor. I wonder what this is going to be. But I also, I thought if you get people to put their names up online, everyone will just sign up, whatever, particularly if it's something which you're not charging anyone for. And so it's too easy to sign up to the event and then not actually take part, or just decide that, I'm a bit tired this morning, I prefer to relax or whatever, and which would have slightly ruined it. So I wanted there to be, it was for a specific number of people. And then I made a massive mistake by forgetting what my protocol was. So I was so worried about more than 400 people turning up, because it was limited to 400 people, that I completely forgot my protocol if fewer than 400 people were to turn up. And I thought, oh God. And so I've gone through this. We've put 2 puzzles on every table, with a 1,000 piece and a 500 piece puzzle on every table. And we've mixed the pieces up. And we've got 50 tables. And we're going to have 8 people on every table. And they're going to put the puzzles together. But after every 10 minutes, everybody's assigned a new table. So everyone's given a number. They know what number they are. And then they've got to go and find where their new table is. But now, all of a sudden, I've only got 250 people. And I've got to get them. I don't want to have one person on table 49. So we tried to rush it through. I've very kindly, Mariana from Portugal has helped me. Oh, I'm a computer programmer. I'll have this sorted out in no time at all. We'll get this. We'll get this in no time. We'll do it for 250 people.
Was this like Monday night, or when
no,
was
this?
This
This is when everyone's there. This is Tuesday morning.
This is while people are doing the first puzzle.
It's going ahead. So we're now in minus 5 minutes from having had the first table changed. And I've just left them there while we're trying to work out which tables to send them to. And then people are like, oh, we'll just send them one. Goes 1 table up and one goes 2 tables. Oh my God, that's going to be far too complicated. Some people don't speak English either here. By this stage, other people were turning up and they were just going off and joining a table and just doing the puzzles on it. And then I finally realized that actually I had a very simple situation, which was just everyone was numbered from 1. What was it? How did it work? So everyone was numbered from 1 to 400. And so they've got their own number. And then they were assigned a table from 1 to 50. Mm-hmm. So there was actually a very simple solution, which I had thought about beforehand, but I'd sort of it just got lost on me, the way I'd organized it. And with the panic of everything going on, I was slightly having to improvise. And so I just said, right, no, what everyone's got to do. So everyone who's assigned a table over 25 just takes 25 off that table number. So I've got to explain. So I said, if you're 48, you'll go to table 23. If you're 40, you take 25. So you go to table 50, etc. Then that worked perfectly. So I had everyone on the first 25 tables, and they were going around and everyone took it. It was really good fun. It was really good fun. It was a little bit chaotic to begin with, but then everyone fell into it. And then they met lots of people. And by all accounts, everybody who said that they'd said they'd really enjoyed it as well. And it was a bit of a party. It was a slightly
as intended
chaotic party. Yes, it was. The amount of work, I actually put a lot more work than you'd have thought getting into it, because it's a lot more complicated to get the table situation and to get them sent to different tables. So they're not following other people to the same tables and they're getting different people. And so that was the idea. So every table they went to, they'd have a different group of people they'd be puzzling with, and they'd puzzle with them for 10 minutes. And so everyone would get to know each other, and which is eventually what happened, albeit not quite in the manner intended. But it was, I had a lot of help as well from Daphne, who was amazing all week.
Love
Daphne from Netherlands. Mm-hmm. She helped out as well. And so it was a lot of fun. I'm quite glad that that I hadn't organized tickets for that. And the expectation might have been too much for people. I might have expected it to be slightly more polished. Next time it will be, though, Rob. Next time.
I know, but it sounds like through the pressure of necessity, come up with a format that might be a great mixer format for the future. Because this is one of the things I'm always concerned about, is that a lot of puzzle competitions, you come with the people you come with, you do the puzzles you do, and then you leave with the people you came with. And you don't have a lot of opportunity, if you don't take a lot of opportunity, to connect with other people. Like, you certainly can in terms of casual walking around and talking to people, but there aren't parts of the events themselves that drive interconnection. And so I'm so glad that for whatever reason, again, perhaps just necessity, that you came across a format that is explicitly a way for puzzlers who are often introverted, shy, aren't necessarily looking to talk to other people, to come together and experience each other in ways they wouldn't normally have, like people they wouldn't normally have met.
Well, I completely agree, and I'm certainly an advocate of. Maybe you'd like to talk about this later, but certainly, I mean, I would have liked this year to have been much more of an event as well as a competition. And people giving more things for people to do, and puzzling basically. And we're talking about getting them puzzling and puzzling in different ways. We had the puzzle chicken,
Yes.
which is a lot of fun, which is happening outside. But that's another example of an initiative which is great fun, which people embrace, and there should definitely be more of, and more opportunities in an official capacity as well, on an organizational capacity, to get people to do these events. I know the USA, they're very much, and they've had some seminars, I believe, and lots of other kind of social puzzling, and some
Hmm.
parallel events and satellite events as well, all involved with puzzling, talks, meetups with the artists, and I believe I think it's a responsibility really for organizers to say, well, you're coming around the world from wherever you're coming, and just spend a week, doing some puzzling, doing what you love. Let's be honest, fewer and fewer people are able to get to the final stages as it's getting more competitive.
Hmm.
And you've got some time, but the nature of it means doesn't have to last for a week necessarily, and I think that's something which might be addressed. But perhaps there's also demand for there to be an event for a week, maybe, but have the first few days filled with these kind of events as well, and have it, and so they can stay there, and it can be a sort of what you call, I suppose, a convention atmosphere, and doesn't take away from the competition necessarily. You could be building up to the competition,
Hmm.
but have a get together of people who love puzzles from all around the world.
I want to take a quick moment to just draw the arc from 2019 to 2025 here, because in 2019, like we talked about, there's about 200 people over the course of 2 days. 2020 and 2021 didn't materialize because of COVID. So I imagine a lot of planning just went straight out the window for those things. And then back again in 2022, which now we've got 4 days. So we've doubled the number of days and increased to about 240 competitors in the individuals events. Skip forward again to the next year, we're at 5 days, and suddenly the event explodes, right? We go from 240 ish people to about 570 people. And then again, the next year, it explodes again, almost doubling again to 1,100, a little more than 1,100 people. And then in 2025, we see sort of a backtracking a little bit. So we've gone from 1,100 active competitors to 900 something active competitors. And now we're over 7 days. So I'm curious if you
Yes.
could tell me a little bit about what drove that sort of explosion in the early phase, if you have any thoughts on it, and what may have driven this year's contraction.
It's interesting. I would like to hear more from other people. Of course, the people I've heard from are the people I've seen, and I haven't spoken to the people who weren't here.
Yeah.
I think there was definitely, from the US, we were missing a lot of people from the US, I think, this year. I've been told differing reasons for them not coming. I think possibly as well. I think the fact that it's now 7 days, possibly that's been part of it. Definitely, it's in the same city. People are coming around the world. Well, and holiday time, vacation time is precious, and to be spending a whole week in one place, in a place where perhaps they were last year and possibly the year before as well. Those are definitely contributing factors to a downturn. And the hope was that there would still be people to fill those spaces. I think that the fact that you are now reducing the time you have to do a puzzle to get the competition in, you've got the people getting much better. So you're not having 2 hours now
Hmm.
to finish a puzzle. You've got an hour and a half, an hour and a quarter in pairs. And so you've got much less puzzling time as well. And so you're thinking, if I'm going out in the first rounds, I'm coming over to do 3 hours puzzling. So I'm sure that must have been a contributing factor as well to many people not coming over. and possibly the lack of satellite events and parallel events to keep themselves entertained for the rest of the week.
Right, because if you are a person like myself, a substandard jigsaw puzzler, then you're in there for, maximum 3 events over the course of 7 days
Yes,
in terms of competition. That certainly can be a rough calculus. I know that
yes,
for myself and my team, we wanted to have the experience of Worlds. So we came because we wanted to have that experience. So we knew realistically that we weren't going to, puzzle more than a couple of times. So we wanted that experience and it was worth it to us. I can imagine for a lot of people that calculus just doesn't work out.
precisely, and understandably.
I wanted to say that I feel like in 2024, with the sort of second explosion in a row of people, we started to see some cracks in the overall competition. Right, we're into 6 days
Yes,
now. We had website related issues that were actually important for people understanding qualifications. So the
yes,
growth, I think, the growth really started to show in
yes.
terms of its effects on the competition. And in 2025, I feel like we saw that blossom for better or worse. And so I want to dig into some of the things that you've already hinted at and sort of get an idea of your perspective on these things and maybe an idea of how the World Jigsaw Puzzling Federation is looking to make changes or improve upon those things or otherwise address those issues. So let's start with the location. I know that you've already hinted that snooker has got its spiritual home in the
Yes.
UK. And so there is something romantic about the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship always being in the same venue in the same city.
I
But it's a
wasn't
challenge.
necessarily alluding to my opinion.
No, I
I
understand.
thought I'd say that there are
What is your opinion?
examples of romantically. I can say yes, but genuinely, even realistically, I would like to see it. I'd like to see it somewhere else. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it held somewhere else. I'd like it to be a roving event. And I think it deserves it. I can't see it rivaling, top tournaments around the world like the World Series or Wimbledon. Or it's obviously puzzling. I can't see it going beyond a certain public. I think it's amazing. I think it's can definitely grow, but I can't see there being professionals making a living out of it and going to competition upon competition week after week, and there being, well, I can snook away. Okay, so the World Championships in one place, but you've got the China Open, you've got competitions in Australia, you've got competitions in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East as well, and in Belgium. And so you've got big competitions and people who are making lots of money. They're making, and they're making a living out of being professional snooker players. Currently, I'm not sure. It'd be amazing if that were the case, that someone would be a professional puzzler. I don't know if that. I don't think it's close. If that is the case, I don't think it's close.
Agreed.
For people, I could be pretty right. I'd love to be wrong. So what does that mean? It means that people are coming over slightly more. They're paying for themselves to come over. They're paying for the experience, and they want to compete. They're doing the best they can. They're treating it like as an athlete would treat, preparing for their competitions. But there's, without the money reward, can you, I think you've got to have, there's got to be something else hooked into it as well. And I think if it's coming to the same thing year upon year, I don't think it's got that. I think it's losing part of the attraction. I think part of the attraction does have to be, I'm coming around the world, I'm going to a different country, and I'm seeing something else. Well, okay, I've got slightly less puzzling than I would have had in 2022 or 2019, but I've got a new city I can see, and a new place to spend some time and visit and explore, and so slightly combine it as a slightly sort of puzzling come tourism joint venture.
You are perhaps more than anybody except Alfonso himself close to the decision making in that, in so much as that you are at least on the website listed as the secretary of the World Jigsaw Puzzling Federation. So there's
I
two things
didn't
to talk
realize
about.
that. I know it's been bandied about. I've never considered it's a proto federation. I'm by no means I'm in conversations. I've been having conversations initially with Dion Healy and Valerie Coit as well from the USA, and really just as a conduit, just as an interpreter. Conversations which unfortunately didn't go as far as I would have liked to, and eventually I just got over my imposter syndrome and said, this doesn't seem to be working, and tried to not push an agenda, but certainly try and help Alfonso see things from a different perspective with limited effect. And so decision-wise, I wouldn't say I've been really involved in decisions particularly.
Are there other people who are involved in decisions? I know that you said sort of early on it was sort of Alfonso and his family sort of pushing this to make this happen in the first place. There's been a lot of years since then, a lot of evolution of the thing. Is it still primarily, is Alfonso the decision maker? Is there a broader conversation?
Primarily. Alfonso.
So he's the person who needs to be convinced.
Alfonso, very much so, is the person who needs to be convinced.
So do you think that there is an appetite on his side for moving the competition around? Because he's from Valladolid, he's got a venue in Valladolid, like he's got a lot of established roots in Valladolid. I can imagine the desire to keep things there, especially if he has some desire to keep the spiritual heart in one place. But do you think that he's open to the idea of moving the competition to a different location?
I do. He's made noises about it. He's had some conversations. No, he's had some in the USA Nationals where he went last year. He had a meeting with, I think, a guy called David from Cleveland, Ohio, and he was to look into possibly organizing it there. And he's definitely seems very keen to, but I suppose that's offset against, when he's decided that he wants to make his living out of it. And if you make a living out of it, well, you want to maximize the money you can make out of it. And it's, when all things are said and done, as soon as you're organizing something away from where you are, it makes things a lot, with people who you don't know, it makes things a lot more difficult. What he has got is a lot of support from public institutions here. So from the city council, from the regional government, and he's got a track record now of organizing an event which brings in over 1,000 people for a week. So in that regard, it's something which he knows how to do here, and he doesn't have to work about doing that all over again. First of all, finding somewhere and organizing, and then battling in a different language and a different culture, to organize something in another place, which would be, in the current setup, would be very trying.
He does, however, potentially have the other country-specific organizations to lean on in that respect, right? I know that there's a desire or a plan in Europe now with the new European Committee to have countries bid in Europe for the competition, the European Championship. I can imagine a similar thing, like they do with the Olympics going on at the world level.
Yes, definitely that's going to be pursued. We've now got some statutes together for a proper federation, which would be, some of its parts, which will then put together some criteria for the holding of the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championships. And so we've got to now put together what those criteria are going to be. We've set out how we want which I hope that people will come on board with, that the associations will want to form part of this future proper federation, which would have a board meeting, which would consist of either the presidents themselves of these associations or official delegates from those associations, and then put together a list of criteria which need to be in terms of space, in terms of local accommodation, satellite space as well, for possibly holding other events,
Hmm.
obviously transport, availability of, good transport links to be able to get there, and, somewhere where it's not going to be too prohibitively expensive, presumably as well, local support from, local authorities as well, and all these things which will need to be taken into account when organizing an event of this stature.
Up until this point, Alfonso has been the primary decision maker. I can imagine that might be difficult to cede control, like a proper federation that you're talking about would sort of require, because you suggested earlier that there would be a more democratic approach to things, right? That there would be voting, and that voting would actually matter. I'm curious as to how realistic is it that a federation, the way that one might think about a federation like this, actually comes into being?
I think it's going to. I think it's going to. I mean, what I've been from my point of view, I can only talk from my point of view. It is that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And really, I spent a lot of effort saying, telling him, Alfonso, look, it's going to happen. But it's going to be part of your initiative, and you've got to realize that this is going to happen. It needs it. And it's obviously because it's outgrown what he's done for it, and it's now it's a retrofit. It's sort of, put the chicken before the egg, or cart before the horse, whatever the expression is. Lou from Australia calls it not imposter. That's what I've got. Founder syndrome, which I do understand as well. And it's quite difficult to have perspective when you're inside. You get used to how something's grown. And I used a garden analogy, so it's your garden. A couple of your tools have gone blunt, and maybe the lawnmower has stopped working. It's got a bit overgrown. You like it, but it needs to be pruned to let them then grow again as well. And sometimes you get so used to it being part of your surroundings, and you've grown with it, and you get used to it, that it's very difficult to see it from someone else's perspective. And I think that it's happened to me in the past, and I think it's definitely happened to him. But I think he is taking a long time, but he's coming round to it.
So speaking, do you think that this is like a next couple weeks, next couple months, sometime this year sort of idea?
No, the statutes have been announced and published to the presidents of the association. So now we're asking for feedback and commentary on what we've currently come up with. And then I would like to have an AGM as soon as possible. And then probably have to fall on my sword, probably, and step aside. So, and do what I do, which is try and organize an event, and obviously anything I can do, I'll be available to do so. But I think it's something which needs to be taken up by these organizations, which ironically, of course, Alfonso's helped create hugely as well. And it's I can see from his point of view, it's a difficult decision to have to make, but I do think he's on it.
Yeah, I think that you can be the sort of instigator of a movement and still lose track of the movement, right? Like, I think that he can have played a pivotal role in the founding of the world competition and the founding of many of the country specific organizations, but they, grow and have needs of their own
Yes.
that maybe
Yeah.
depart from what he is expected or what he feels like are central to his needs. So that's, I think, why a world federation makes sense, right? Is because one person's opinion starts to become not the most beneficial way when there's a big body of people involved and not just a small body trying to make it happen. It's a transition a lot of things make, like companies make this transition, right, from a person who's in charge to a board. So it's both time and also really hard, I can imagine.
Yeah. I would hope that any federation which was created would ask him and invite him to be the person who would organize that World Championships, but according to criteria which they've come up with and under their guidance. I'm not sure guidance perhaps is the word, but certainly not under instruction either, but just conforming to certain criteria, as I mentioned before, and I think it needs to be stepped up. There's no doubt that it needs to be better.
Speaking of needs to be better, let's touch on some of the other topics that came up in the kind of 2025. I'd love to hear your perspective. There's a lot of things that came up that aren't necessarily into the control, especially of you, but as the sort of person who was there every day, who's got the long vision of this, I'd love to hear your perspective. And let's start with the weather. Obviously, you can't control the weather, but the venue itself was amazingly hot. And that suggests to me, although I never heard anything directly, that maybe the air conditioning in the building wasn't working or was underpowered
Precisely.
or didn't exist. So tell me that story.
So no, it's a building with air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that I'm not sure how effective it would have been even if working. But
okay, because I'd heard it maybe wasn't working.
Oh no, it wasn't working. No,
Yeah.
Absolutely, it wasn't working. And which is, we've hired a building which, it can be hot at Spain. It can be hot at that time of year. We know that, but the building has air conditioning, but it wasn't working. The air conditioning was broken. I've got a feeling apparently one of them, it's got two separate systems. It's got two separate on either side of the dome, but both were broken. Apparently one had been fixed, but hadn't been checked over for possible Legionnaire's disease, so was unable to be used. And so we had to do what we could. But we've been, we definitely, and we've had a venue with air conditioning, and then very much the first people let down by that, very much us. So that was just, it was awful. And it was such extreme temperatures as well.
The dome was owned by the city. Is that true?
The dome is owned by the city, but they have a system where it's run by, so it's subcontracted. The running of it's subcontracted to another company. And so one of those companies' contract had just come to an end, literally just before the Worlds. And they'd just let the air conditioning just take second place and not bother. And so they were the ones who'd normally been charged with making sure everything was maintained, keeping the maintenance up to date. But they had 2 months to run on their contract, so did nothing about it. So I think the new guy inherited the situation, and again, probably just thought, well, I'm not going to fix that until I have to. And so that was the situation, and there's a bit of buck passing. And at the end of the day, that was it. No air conditioning for a massive event such as the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championships.
I would expect that if a venue organization provided a venue that was not functioning on an air conditioning basis in the middle of a heat wave, that it would be their responsibility to make that work. Was it? Or did you guys have to, I'm going to say you guys, but I don't know that you were particularly involved, but from your perspective, did they take responsibility and try and fix it, or did that
they helped?
Fall
yeah, I think both. So both of the all the supplementary equipment we got in, which again you can't get an air conditioning unit in because you've got to get pipes running outside because the heat's got to go out. That heat leaves the building by the nature of an air conditioning system via the hot water it creates and the energy it's using up inside. And so the hot air and hot water gets flushed out, but you can't do that. You can't just go into a hermetic building and just put some, hose pipes out and some other vents poking outside to get rid of all the hot air, which is what creates the cold air inside. There's the old physics question, isn't it? I remember very clearly physics. You put a refrigerator in a room and leave the door open. What happens to the temperature of the room? And everyone goes, oh, well, it gets colder, doesn't it? Because the fridge is cold. But no, he said, it doesn't get colder because it's expending energy, and expenditure of energy creates heat. Therefore, what you have to do, we had to get these, what I think they called swamp coolers.
Swamp coolers, yeah.
They felt like swamp heaters. They just might well have been, which of course also increased the humidity in there. But it was the best we could do, and they helped. So that it was conversations with the local council and the guys with the lease on the dome itself, and he managed to get those, which helped a little bit, but not, what do they call it? Fart in a hurricane, is it? I think I just made that one up.
Charlie, it's not surprising that you are the person who's in charge of the microphone and shows up on the live streams, because this is the kind of thing that you inject into the conversation. Speaking of things you couldn't control weather-wise, one day we had a break from all of the heat and had a storm instead. That was quite the adventure. I'd love to hear your perspective, especially at some point I'm looking up and you're holding a chair over a table. And that has become sort of an iconic image of that event. So tell me a little bit about your experience with that day.
Well, it is quite simple, because I have actually always described, particularly as of last year as well, 2024. I was always, I called my job, some people call it firefighting, but I always call it plugging leaks. And then who would have thought that it would become literal? Again, it didn't really. It was only until the following day that it took on any sort of meaning. When they go, the chair, and everyone I spoke to was like, the chair, and I was going, what? It just seems normal to me, but it was, I suppose, it was a very good metaphor for the kind of work and the kind of thing I do, and it became literal as I just thought. So the situation is that they've got this massive storm going on, and we've had what could have been a genuine disaster as the massive screen comes down outside. I mean, genuine, proper disaster it could have been,
because that screen is big, it's heavy.
Oh, I mean, and we're talking, with potential fatalities there. I mean,
right. It got blown over by the wind from the storm,
and it's just come down. And we'd been there. I'd been underneath it 2 minutes before, and fortunately, no one was underneath it. And so they lost a couple of the panels, and well, it's not really fit for purpose, I don't think. But anyway, fortunately, there were no injuries to lament there. But then, of course, I come back in, and then, of course, the dome turns out not to be quite as watertight as you'd like. I mean, it is made up with all these panels, and it was a pretty major storm. And then suddenly you've got water coming in from a few places. And you've got this team who've got water dripping on the table. And so we're sort of there.
Because this was in the middle of the team's, it was
the middle of the team's heat. It was on a Friday. And this is, because I remember this day, because I was going to be knocking off at 7 o'clock, and I've been flat out for the days before the competition as well. I've been doing all nighters as well, helping out, trying to get things off the ground. Then obviously involved from the first minute every day, and there's just always a backlog of things to do. So you've got this team, and they've got water dripping onto the puzzle, so we've got to try and get them to change tables. And I remember, I thought, well, water dripping. I thought, what can I do? So I noticed the chair. If you turned it upside down, it would actually collect water and it would stop it dripping. Because if you did it on the other side of the chair, it was concave and would just drip down onto other parts of the puzzle. So I just held this chair up while the drip was coming down. And what I remember, so the four of them on the team, and three of them changed table. They'd taken their boards they'd been working on. They changed most of the puzzle. But there was one chap who I was holding a chair above, who was just none the wiser. And I just left him. I just left him there puzzling away. And eventually his team came and said, no, we've moved the puzzle. We're over there now. And he's going, what? And he got up and eventually moved his little pieces that he was working on. But it wasn't breaking his concentration in any way at all. But it was made for a pretty atmospheric heat, that storm, I can tell you.
Yeah, it did. So I'm thinking about the rule decisions that you have to make on the fly when things hit outside of what you expect the rules to cover. And having to move a table because of rain is not something you write into the rules, right?
Precisely.
And so I'm curious as to like how you guys thought about crediting time to that table, or like, because this is a theoretically something out of their control. How do you deal with that and make it fair?
The to make it fair, you just give them redress. It's the Karen puzzle's the wrong puzzle. You just have to come up with a common sense decision. Generally speaking, you know where they are, what sort of place they are in the competition. I don't know what happened to that team. So I certainly never heard anything. Oh, we were really affected by that. I think there was still a team's heat the following morning, if I'm right. So, whilst you've still got that option, you've still got another heat. You can say, well, look, we'll just put you in the heat tomorrow morning, which was something we did for. There was a defective puzzle as well over the course of the week, and the puzzle which came with not just 2 or 3 pieces missing, but extra pieces, repeated pieces, and pieces missing, and it was just a complete disaster of a puzzle. And
Yeah, my understanding with that is that at least 4 teams were missing at least 50 pieces, and several
yes,
teams had more, as you said, extra
yeah,
pieces, 50 extra pieces.
certainly with one of the teams who felt they'd been really hard done by. So we just said, look, we'll consider your puzzle done, but if you decided that's really affected you, well, we'll invite you to just come back and compete tomorrow morning in the heat tomorrow morning. I've got a feeling that the ones I'd seen had done the other puzzle beforehand, and they hadn't really got to the stage where it was really could genuinely say it had affected their chances of going through. It's a case by case, because you can't just say to everybody, right, you're all through. You can't do that, obviously. You can't say to everybody, you will come back tomorrow morning. So I think it's got to be a case by case decision, judging on how they did the other puzzle. And again, but you're slightly doing it on the fly. Really, there's not really. You just can't. We can write something in, but I mean the redress again. I mean, what you really need, I'm going to say, is a panel who are going to make a decision on that. I do think there is written somewhere into the rules that on for any exceptional circumstances, a panel can make a decision on how affected someone might have been. I don't think anyone is likely to begrudge that sort of thing. I mean, I think in a competition, I think you've got to have some sort of leeway where you can, under exceptional circumstances, make some extra spaces in a final or a semi-final. I think you've got to have a little bit of give there. But of course, these things need to have the backing of a proper jury, and it needs to be, so you need to know who's been making these decisions. Again, we go back to the need for a genuine federation, a federation which has got names to it and backing, and the backing of an AGM, and a group of people who are going to be able to be held to account, and who people can trust to be making the right decisions on an impartial basis.
If I understand things correctly, in this particular case, you being the guy who was on the floor when all of these things happened were sort of the person of final decision. Is that correct?
I didn't make any decision on that. I didn't. I do not. I don't know what. I don't know whether that team got through to the finals. I follow later on that day. Things were very much put in perspective. Very, very shortly afterwards, I got a call from David saying that one of the Swedish. I mean, I was saying the message I got was someone was dying. I mean, that was the message I got. Luckily, it turned out not to be quite so serious, and so it was a young Swedish participant, and she had come down ill, and she needed to go to hospital. So I was just instantly forgot about the competition. I said, look, for Alfonso, I've got to take this girl to the hospital. I got Lou, who's president of the AJP, the Australian Jigsaw Puzzle Association. I went round with her to the flat where they were. She gave an initial assessment of this girl, and we took her to the hospital. And I spent the rest of the night. Now it was 7 o'clock when this happened. It was just before, so it just tied. It was still raining. It was the back end of the storm. I was in A&E until just after midnight. Anyway, fortunately, she's since made a good recovery.
Was this related to the heat or something
No,
else?
I don't think it was. I mean, it might have been exacerbated by the heat. As far as I know, it wasn't related to it. In fact, the doctors there said that she could compete and gave her the green light to compete the following days. So no, I think it's slightly more existing conditions. But something which might easily have been exacerbated. I mean, the heat's not going to help anyone in those sort of circumstances. So, yeah, a personal circumstance exacerbated by heat and possibly, and stress. But it wasn't actually directly heat related. Definitely not. No,
because I saw at least one ambulance come to deal with heat-related things.
Yeah, there was one case of an ambulance, and there was certainly there were a couple of people who were pretty affected by it, and that happened as well. There was a Danish participant, and I remember going and calming her down, saying, "Look, really, don't you don't need to continue." I tried to give out warnings and said, "Look, I said to people at the beginning of tests, don't feel if you're not feeling good." And I said, it was particularly with the teams as well. I said, if you see someone in your team who's not right, just make sure you stop. Just you've got to take your health into account before anything else. But it's a very tricky situation, because you've got to be responsible. But you've got people who still want to puzzle. I think 99% of people,
they've come all this way,
and I don't think, I mean, there's no one who said you should have stopped it. I've certainly not had that from anybody, although you've got to ask yourself that question: is that the right thing to do, or do you let people be autonomous and say, look, and just go as far as you can? Don't people know when to stop running? Or do they? Sometimes you see other competitions as well. You've seen people getting groggy as well in official competitions, marathons and triathlons, things. That's obviously in a very physical thing. You're not expecting that in a puzzle competition for people to be affected by that. But obviously, it's heat, put things into potentially, dangerous situation for people who are overdoing it, and obviously exacerbated by the terrible heat that we had that week. And it was just on high alert and, making sure that I'm hoping that nothing serious happened to anyone.
Let's talk about some things that were more directly under the control, not of the gods, but of you guys, of yourselves. There was a decision made to leave the stickers that keep the boxes closed on the box and provide a tool for opening that. This was something that at least I, as a regular competitor, didn't find out till maybe day of. I'm curious as to what drove that decision. And then ultimately there was not going to be time for it, but then there became time for it. I'd love to hear more about how that happened.
I think it's fairly well documented how against this decision I was personally. And there's absolutely no secret that I just thought you cannot do that. I mean, there was just, and I was
which part
unequivocal. Oh, I mean, you can't foist a little bit of plastic, a little plastic. I call them a plex, like it's like a guitar plectrum, but with a sort of little pointy bit. You can't foist that on somebody in a puzzle competition when they haven't even had a chance to use it before. They don't know how to use it, and say that that's part of the time they have to put. I mean, I just saw it so clearly. I said, don't do that. And in fact, the first couple of days of the competition was I'd put a massive effort in to try and reverse that decision.
And again, you're trying to convince one person here.
Yes, I'm trying to convince.
I mean, and you've got the ear of this person to have for years, and it is still no small effort on your part.
Well, yes, it's not always. People feel strongly. It's a world of Jigsaw is a world of passion, and people feel passionately about certain things. And I've certainly felt very passionately the opposite way, and had no small amount of conversations, and to get at, very much shouted down as well. Don't talk to me about it. And I said, but I still wasn't done. I could just see. It just seemed obvious to me that it was something which could overshadow, certainly the initial days of the competition. I think it would have got changed, but I just felt it was important to get it done. So we're half an hour away from the beginning of the competition. I've slightly sort of instigated a change.org. I made a suggestion that it might be an idea. It was really just to give me, because I thought it would work. I mean, I just felt that everyone, I just felt the vibes from everyone I spoke to. Everyone was concerned about it, was worried about it, and I needed to have just one more bite at the cherry to see if I could get this change made.
Right. And your thinking there is that if you could make the voices of the people more visible,
exactly,
that it might make it.
Well, I just needed a bit of ammunition. I needed something concrete to go with and say, look, this is happening. Look, we've got, we haven't had any competition yet. This has got 160 odd signatories. I can only see problems here. And still no go. Then we got a couple of girls sent in the heavy artillery. Some fairly passionate girls were sent in as well as the follow-up, and that proved to be sufficient to get it changed at the last minute. And I think very fortunate. I think it was just at the right time.
I had heard that the original meaning like minutes before the competition, was like 30 seconds, and then that became a minute somehow.
Yes, he said, he slightly begrudgingly, okay, and I said 30 seconds. I go, great. And then I was actually up on I was up with Eva, and he goes, go on, have a minute then. And I said, alrighty, and we got it up to a minute. But again, I mean, this is again. I mean, this is a simple committee decision. It's just a decision which needs to be made by a committee, and I don't think anyone would have decided to have that. Certainly not have them open the boxes themselves. It's a tricky thing. I mean, certainly the last year in 2024, we opened the boxes, but a few escaped the net. When you cut when you cut them, you've got 13,000 stickers you've got to cut. I mean, it's no small effort, and to make sure everyone and all 4 stickers of each box is being cut properly. I mean, out of 13,000 times that by 4, you're up at over 50,000 stickers, which have got to be cut. When you've got that, human error's got to creep in, and there's got to be some which aren't. Then people, oh well, I had the sticker on, and so the reveal is that so important that I feel personally that so slightly takes the edge off this sort of this sort of soft opening. Maybe it takes the slight excitement. What's the puzzle? And so you sort of have 2 countdowns. Again, these are decisions. These are decisions to be made by committees, to be decided by people who organise different competitions and what they think.
Some amount of forethought was certainly put into this, in so much as that there were these box opening devices available in the first place. I assume they had to be acquired, identified. Like, I'd never seen such a thing.
Yes.
So it's not like the decision to do the stickers was, I'm assuming, done in the last day or so.
No, it
right?
wasn't. It certainly hadn't been done in the last day. I've probably found out maybe a couple of weeks before. 10 days, I should think, after I got back from the UK from August, which I spent over there. And I told you my thoughts about, what I thought of the decision. In theory, it's not if you've got something which genuinely works, it's not bad, but these stickers are pretty, they're not easy to remove. They're I think they're even harder than the, certainly even to peel them off. I feel that they've changed the actual sticker itself. Am I right?
Yeah,
Did
I
it
feel
feel a
like
bit
that's right.
softer before? And it feels like it's much closer and really pulls the lid towards the box as well. So it's really not easy to get an implement in between there. And if you're doing 50,000 of those boxes, or those stickers at any rate, maybe not, sorry, not actual puzzles themselves, but actual stickers, bearing in mind there are 4 per puzzle. I can see that, you not wanting resources to go there. Again, it's getting the team together as well, and and having allocating time to do that as well. It's slightly a quick fix. I personally, I suppose maybe I like you take it out, oh, there's the puzzle, and everyone goes, wow. And so the edge is slightly taken, the excitement perhaps is very slightly taken out of that. Maybe put that in place for the preliminary rounds, keep the finals and take the stickers off the boxes for the finals. Perhaps. Again, all of these things, they're
Could have
opinions
been
and they're things
discussed.
to be
Yeah.
thrown up in the air and to be discussed and to be decided by a group of people on a vote or whatever it is. I think these are simple things, and I think but I think they're joint decisions to be taken by a group of people, not to be in hands of just one person. I think there needs to be. There was another one as well. There was the teams competition. There was the people doing the magician's tablecloth trick.
Yes. We did that because we were one of the ones where that rule was still not overridden yet.
Well, it
wasn't
was, yes.
clarified.
Again, it was. But I take responsibility for that because
Can you tell a little bit what that trick was?
I'd actually tried to make out that wasn't meant to be allowed. Again, it wasn't specifically mentioned. The rules in that part of the rules, it wasn't mentioned. What was mentioned in the rules is that you're not allowed a 1-to-1 copy of the actual puzzle itself. A piece cut,
guide.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which, if you've got a puzzle which is already done, which is a 1,000-piece puzzle which fits exactly on top of that, then essentially that is a 1-to-1 piece cut.
But that's something that requires explanation.
It
right?
was, of course it does, and it absolutely requires explanation. And that is something which I looked at. I said, well, that is in the rules. No one can say that's not in the rules. Then what do you say? Do you say that you're allowed to keep the puzzle together, or you've got to have the vinyl in between that puzzle, and suddenly you're into making up different rules? So you're allowed to have the puzzle still together, but as long as the opaque thing's stopping it. What I do think here is I think that we don't want to be loyally looking into these rules. I mean, what's happened? A problem being created when one never existed. You do the first puzzle, you sign it off as done, and then you clear that one away while you're getting the new one in place. And there was never a problem with that. But then
I feel like last year's rules reflected more specifically some version of that, because this year it was people discovered the rule change that they could exploit. Right. So I feel like last year, it's definitely the case in like the US competitions, where you have, as you said, you have to clear the puzzle off. Right. So there's no guesswork involved in whether you have a template or not, because the other puzzle's gone. Right.
Yes.
That's part of the requirements.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was one, I don't know if it was actually US Nationals, where the whole first puzzle had to be physically, all the pieces back in the box with the lid on before you could even open the other box. Personally, I would say that's going over the top, because it's also possibly punishing people, slightly like the sticker thing. You just have a bit slightly clumsy, elbow a couple of pieces onto the floor. What, you've got to be scrambling about the floor now for these pieces, get them all back in the... I think slightly a problem here, and again, this is totally opinion based. I think that a problem's been created where none existed. You do the first one, it's signed off, then you get 2 of you who are opening up the next puzzle, 2 of you are clearing the other puzzle away, and you start the next puzzle. And we're talking a question of, you're slightly gaming it to gain 3 seconds. I would suggest I will be the first person with the rules as they were to be doing the tablecloth trip. I know I would be the first. Oh look, tablecloth! Oh yeah, I love it. It's just right up my street.
I was the same way because I was watching the live stream of the first teams competition. I was like, oh, look at what they're doing. I am 100% going to do that when it's our turn.
I would be as well. I think possibly though, I think it's like you probably don't really want people to be doing on an organizational point of view. It goes a little bit wrong. I mean, you see what happens if you try the tablecloth trick, it can get messy as well.
Yes,
And it's not really something that you want everybody to be doing. I think what I'm saying, the original rules, it's just, you sign the first puzzle off, you get clearing it away, you're opening the next box. But of course, it's a very messy rule to write that in. While you're doing it, you may be opening. You don't want to be using those sort of tenses with rule writing. So it's slightly, this sort of slight gaming of the rules, and this. I think the minimal gains you're taking should not be about sticker opening, and they should not be about covering up your original puzzle with the other thing. Clear the puzzle away as you've always done in these team competitions. Go opening another box. You've signed it off. You're not doing two. You can't do two puzzles concurrent at the same time. They've got to be consecutive. You sign one off. Be clearing it away. Open the other box and get doing the other puzzle, as has been done for 4 years. And I would say that you, as an organization, you don't really want people whipping something from underneath a puzzle with the possibility for those pieces to go maybe land on, you're at close quarters in these competitions and they could land on other people's table. It could, that wouldn't be, I would suggest, not something which I would be encouraging people to do.
For sure. I think there is a certain extent to which you can rely on people for having done the things that they've historically done. But once the competition becomes elite level, like we've really seen it happen, and where the rules are not consistent from year to year, like some things change. And so people look for those advantages because people lose by 3 seconds.
And they're within their rights to do so, Rob. You're up. Right. I agree with that. They are within their rights to do so. So, I mean, I think on this one, technically, having the piece cut rule cut off that no one was penalized for having done it. No one was actually gaining an advantage of that. But as it happened, the piece cut rule, which is in another section, which should be obviously included in that section as well, did cover that not being allowed, if you see what I mean.
Right, but regardless, I think your point or earlier point stands, is that a committee whose job it is to make sure that the rules are fair and explored and tight, and adjudicated, would go a long ways towards ameliorating those kinds of issues.
Without a doubt, 100%.
One of the other complaints we heard a lot about is the preliminary puzzle selection.
Yes.
Not necessarily the fact that you get two and you choose one. People didn't like that. Other people like that. I think that there's a discussion to be had there. And I think that seems like the WJPF is, maybe just Alfonso, is continually exploring tweaks to formats, right? How do you make this more interesting? And I think that is totally fine. But we saw a lot of heavily known puzzles show up in the prelim rounds, which a lot of people were disappointed about, because they wanted maybe things from the newer catalog or things they haven't done a whole bunch before. Other people were concerned about in terms of the advantages that portrays to people who have access to those puzzles or who are doing a lot of repeats. I wonder if, like, maybe you don't know a ton about this, but I would love to have any insight you could offer around how puzzle selection for those prelim rounds came about.
Much of the selection is what's available for Ravensburger. Again, I don't know within Ravensburger how they're making those decisions as to what they're making available. I've no idea how commercially minded those decisions are, to whether they're actively thinking, well, let's do some, we'll do them from these so people know that these kinds of puzzles are going to be used, and therefore sell those puzzles as well, to all the people who are good, because they know if they're well versed at doing those puzzles, they've got an advantage. I've no idea whether that is the case. So I know. I mean, if, from an organizational point of view, I mean, I just think everyone would love them to be, brand new puzzles all the time. But I don't think that's going to be happening soon. But you never know.
That certainly the US was able to do it this last year, and Canada was able to do it this last year. Now, my understanding is that working with the North American Ravensburger is different from working with the
Yes.
European Ravensburger, and that maybe there are differences in what they can offer and that sort of thing. But there is proof points that it can be done.
Yes. Without it. I mean, it's a question of them wanting to do so. I think it would be
Them being
amazing if
Ravensburger.
they. Yes, precisely.
Hmm.
Again, but I'm afraid I've got no insider knowledge on that at all. I would say I feel like there. I've certainly, from talking to people, that it feels like that Ravensburger, over in Europe might be becoming, or within the US might be becoming slightly more aligned. And I have a feeling that they're looking into how to make puzzles available all over the world at the same time. And so having no one would be at a disadvantage from being in a place where a certain puzzle is not licensed for publishing in that country. So I would hope definitely that certainly again, we go back to federation again. A group of people, bringing pressure, on a world level. It can only help, and it can only help bring pressure on Ravensburger, who are the current publishers of all the puzzles for the World Championships, for them to say and take notice and say, well, and so Val can say, well, look, you're doing it for the US. You can't do this for Worlds in Europe. What's the deal here? I mean, I think ideally there'll be brand new puzzles.
Yeah, it is slightly confounded by the fact that if you keep the here's to select one format moving forward, then you've doubled the number of puzzles you need for preliminary rounds, and I can imagine that might make it even more challenging to provide unique puzzles, right? So those
Yes,
those two things are in tension, I believe.
yes. I think also the giving of the two puzzles was also just to make sure that every competitor went home with at least two puzzles. I
Mm,
think that was also part of the thinking in a simple way. So you go into the competition, whatever happens, you lose, you're out the first. You've got your two puzzles with you. So I think that was part of the thinking as well as having the choice. I think it's. I think it's. I think personally, I think there are certainly lots of formats. There are so many different possible formats that you can go through as well, and having to choose and having the eye to decide what's an easy puzzle. I've just heard your last podcast, the last one I listened to of yours, with Kathy talking about how she felt she'd made the wrong choice with her Excalibur puzzle, and I think it was the horoscope one that she had the choice between, and she felt she was puzzling and couldn't get over. I've made the wrong decision. I've made the wrong decision.
right.
I mean, this is the preliminary rounds, but you can make that mistake in a preliminary. The stakes are higher if that were to be in a final or something like that.
Yes.
I don't think that would be in the conversation right now about a final, but what is amazing is that you can entertain all of these for different kinds of competitions and open it up and have different kinds of competitions where you have different kinds of rules, and different formats.
Across all of the concerns that happened throughout the week, the real consistent theme was communication.
Yes.
The lack of ability to know when rules had changed, when events had been new events had been made, what was going on with the heat. It felt like if there was an official channel that was being used actively to provide information to the people who were at the competition, it could have gone a long ways to making some of these concerns more minor than they did become. Do you know if there are plans to fix that?
Well, I mean, I think we can't not fix that. I mean,
I mean, you didn't this time,
it's
right?
just. I mean, I'm as exasperated as the next person. I'm not really. I'm hope going over and beyond. What's generally speaking my remit. This again, this needs to be stipulated. I think this sort of information. There's just such a lack of information in our communication. It's just dreadful. There's no other way to put it. It's not up to standards. And there needs to be masses more information. People need to be kept informed, and we're in the information age. You've got to keep people informed. People need to know what's going on. They need to. Personally, I'm very frustrated by it. I think I've got to, make this improve this communication. 100% agree. I mean, it can't go on like that.
So let's switch gears here. Let's look back fondly on the last few years. I'm wondering if there are touching or memorable moments that specifically stand out for you over the course of the last few years, whether it involves competitors or people on the ground.
Oh, I mean, huge amounts which stand out. I mean, just generally speaking, just the whole community, everyone. There's just such an amazing group of people. It really is. It's so friendly. It's just like spending a week on. It's like going on holiday every year with the same people. It's everyone chips in. Everyone's incredibly friendly. I've made friends. I've been. It's taken me to Australia for a couple of
Of all
weeks,
places.
of all places, exactly. I've been to Sweden, I've been to Portugal as well, to their national competition. I've been to the UK, to the UK nationals as well. And it's just, it just really is. It's, and I've been very, I mean, the amount of people, I mean, I've been, personally thanked for things, and it's really people genuinely appreciate and notice what you do. They're very observant people, and I phenomenal. I mean, I can't single out anything. I mean, obviously, the battle with Kristen, for example, and then you had the 7-minute gap, then you had the 30-second gap, and then you had the victory of hers last year. I mean, that obviously, that battle as well. Then, I've seen other people, and you've seen, sort of a comeback from Yana this year, for example, having had a year out to have children and things, and seeing them, Marquetta as well, when she came, I think she was there with when she was expecting a child as well last year, who she brought along with. So there've been so many. I mean, there was, it was the first ones with AJ and his family. I mean, that's another standout moment. There's, the Dutch contingent as well. There's, I mean, Karen's one. There's Pelline as well, who's been here since the beginning. They've never failed, and it's just the bright, smiling faces, being positive, helping out, doing everything they can, and just feeling it's like an extended family.
What are you most proud of?
Oh, pride. I don't know if I'm someone I don't know. Do you know what? I don't really, I just do things. So I don't really, it's not, it just feels, I mean, if we talk about lack of communication, and there's a lack of preparation as well. And so just being there and being able to improvise as well. But I mean, that's just me. I'm not proud of that.
It is definitely the case that in the years where I paid any kind of attention, everywhere I looked where something was going on, you were in the middle of it, like in the best way. You're on the live stream, you're announcing, but you're also on the floor, you're adjudicating things, you're helping out, you're putting chairs above tables. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is just because you seem to give your all at these competitions. And my personal opinion is that it reflects really strongly on the world competition that they have you there.
Oh, that's very kind, Robert. Very kind words. I do what I can. I do see it. People come from around the world. These are their holidays. They look forward to it the whole year. I mean, a special mention to Jess Bennett, who I know she's going to tune into this, and she's just she just loves it, and she's counting down the days and just sent me just 250 days to go. And I haven't received it so far this year, but I mean, no doubt, as soon as we get down to 300 days, she'll be telling me how long there is. But that's just one of the examples, and just how much effort people put in, and people of all sorts of means as well. And they put so much, and they deserve so much. And so, I'm here, I'm feet on the ground. I'm in a position to do something, so I do it. I mean, the sticker cutting, for example, I'm in a position. I find it so frustrating when you see, politicians or people in positions of responsibility make the wrong decisions, and so obviously make the wrong decision. You just go, come on, it's just so blatantly the wrong decision. And there I was, and I was in a position to do something, so I do it. And that's all it is. It's because people deserve no less than that. Because if I was on the other side, I'd be fighting for the same thing to happen. I can't just sit passively by for what, in my opinion, was a perceived injustice. And I think also would have been a big mistake. I'm just going back to that one thing. And so it's just no less than people deserve when they, I think there's an awful lot more that they deserve as well. I think we can bring it all together. We can bring the amount of people who are the fact that it wasn't up to the levels of last year. I think improving the communication, improving just what we put on as well. Having a visible team behind everything. I think will. People need to recover the confidence in that it's now beyond its embryonic stage. It's not a toddler anymore, and it's got to stand up on its own 2 feet and provide as well for the effort that everyone else is putting into in coming over from all parts of the world. It's an amazing event because just the coming together. I mean, they'd have fun if you put them in a prison for the weekend of a few puzzles. I mean, it would there would be a great atmosphere there. But that's not the point. You can't rest on your laurels. You've got to innovate. You've got to, and in my opinion, got to give them more. And by improving, I think communication, improving, what we put on, and that. The puzzle party was okay this year, an afterthought, but actually, slightly, if I'd managed to polish it up a bit, it would be actually a good event for any sort of puzzle get together. Just do an event like that, and everyone really genuinely had a good time there. And it's not that difficult to please people. It just feels that there's so much more it could be. And there's certainly no lack of people who'll be putting their hands up and saying, I can do this, I can do that. What about this? What about that? And bringing it into fruition.
I can't think of a better note to end this on. Charlie Kendall, thank you so much for joining me on Peace Talks, sharing your insights and opening up your heart for all of us. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Rob, it's been a pleasure. Been a great couple of hours here speaking to you. I hope you've got something which is user-friendly, which you can put on the podcast.
If people are only seeing a 3-minute version, then they'll know they missed a lot.
You're going to cut this down. Resume this in 3 minutes. Let's see how that goes.
Where can people find more about you?
Where
You're
can
sort
people
of a ghost
find
online.
a ghost? I mean, they can email me, charliekendall2@gmail.com. I don't know why I'd want that. I've got terrible. I mean, again, I'm my really bad Instagram quiz page, which is just so deficient. I'm not the greatest at blowing my own trumpet. But anyway, if you want to go at PezQuiz, PezQuiz, you can send a message to me via there. I'll get it. But it's a dreadful page. What is a page? What is it on it? Oh, I just try something. I'm too old for this Instagram gaming. Panhandles, whatever they are.
All right, Charlie. All right. Thanks again.
Rob, been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Peace Talks. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at peace_talks, and you can send email to peacetalkscast@gmail.com.